All right, so at 10:43 this morning, a call was placed to our Bravo district desk, which the call was then routed to our 911 call center of a weapon at a school at South Park High School. The call text also stated that there were shots currently being fired and that there were several students that were shot in the bathroom at the school. It also further gave a description of the shooter. Cars responded very quickly within a few minutes. It was quickly determined that this was a false call. We had gotten information last night around the country of a rise in swatting calls, as it's known as. This morning, we also got information from downstate that there were swatting calls. At the time of this call was going on, myself, my school's chief, and deputy commissioner were actually in a meeting with the school superintendent on numerous topics. We discussed the potential of swatting calls coming to this location, and sure enough, we got one of those calls while we were in our meeting with the superintendent. This is similar, almost same as to what happened at Nichols about a month or so ago. And at the time that occurred, this also was going on around the state and around the country. It's not a joke. We know why people do this. We're working with the state and federal partners to do our best to track these things down. We'll see where they come from, whether they're overseas or whether they're stateside, but we will exhaust every effort to pursue these callers if we can get to their locations. Just because we had information that there was fake calls that were going on, it doesn't change our response. It doesn't change, how serious we take these. Every school has to take this serious. We just saw what happened just the other day in Nashville, and these are no joking matters. So we are going to aggressively respond to these calls, and we will follow all of our protocols. And it's one of the things that I talked about with the school superintendent as well this morning, is the need to continue to look at all of our SOPs on active shooter calls, so to make sure that we are as up to date as possible.
Can you further clarify what swatting calls are?
So the term swatting came about by putting in like an active shooter type call where you would get a SWAT-like response. The purpose is to generate a large police presence to a fake incident.
So since these were all fake calls, what are the consequences you can get after consequences you can face, performing these fake calls?
It really depends. I mean, you are looking at falsely reporting an incident. Not sure, because these calls are being made across the state, depending on where you are. There's federal jurisdictions that would apply, and I don't know exactly what those federal charges would be, but there are a multitude of charges that could apply. Yes, we have phone numbers that we're working with, New York State Police, us. I know it also occurred in Lockport, I believe Olean, Salamanca, and there's some other jurisdictions around the state, Putnam County. So everybody's getting together and working with the FBI on this.
How concerning is it that you get these fake threats and it takes away resources, things that could be happening?
It's very concerning. I mean, it's a sad state in society, and I feel like a broken record. I just said this last month. Our kids, mine included, are students, and when I was a student, I didn't worry about this. We went to school. We did our fire drills. Kids today are doing lockdown drills. They're doing, shelter-in-place drills, and they actually have to worry about real gun violence coming into their school. It's causing fear in our my kids included. As I said, all of our kids are in fear when they're going to school instead of enjoying the learning, the learning atmosphere that they should be in.
So since times are changing as when it comes to all these different threats coming in school, are there any discussions being made with you guys saying like preventable measures, like putting up bulletproof glass or anything like that?
Yes. The short answer is yes, and that's some of what I talked to the Buffalo school superintendent about this morning. We saw what happened in Nashville. The shooter shot the glass out of the door and made entry. So now, do you put, steel screens on your doors? Do you put bars on the other side of the glass? And we're making our schools like prisons. That's really the sad state here. You also have to, protect our students as well. So there is an expense. Bulletproof glass is not cheap. And then you're not just talking about the doors. You're talking about the first floor windows. Like, what are all the ingress points? So That's a budgetary consideration that has to be made by school districts to harden their targets, and I don't know how you don't make these schools look like they're in prison when they're supposed to be enjoying the learning environment.
Channel 4.
Is there a risk involved to your officers when they have to respond to these? Because there is an urgency to get there. And would someone be facing charges if an officer was injured in response to this?
Yes and yes, there's always a risk. Our officers are expediting to these calls, lights and sirens. They're getting there as rapidly as possible, which means you're driving above the speed limit. You're going, as carefully as possible through traffic and through red lights. You have to get to these calls. And, we've seen around the country in Priority 1 calls where officers have been involved in serious accidents where they've been killed. Civilians have been killed. You also have the risk of you're going through now. You have to do room by room clearing. Obviously, guns are drawn at this point, and you're terrifying these kids, and that's what they're trying to get out of this. Tim, Joseph?
Commissioner, you mentioned Nashville. Can you just characterize through your eyes, your expert eyes, of what you see on that body cam video that came out of Nashville? There's a lot of public support for how the police responded.
Absolute bravery. That's what we signed on for. That's what we took this job to do. They did it. They did it exceptionally. I know the chief of Nashville. I've spoken with them. Praised the work of his officers. That's the job we signed up to do. They did it remarkably well. Those are the officers that I want protecting my children. I saw that same rapid response by our police officers last May. They went right to it. When they took the shooter in custody, they went right in the store and started clearing the store, not having any clue if anybody else was inside. That's what you do. That's the job, and they did it. They did it well. They should be very proud of themselves for the work that they did.
Anybody else?
Your time on the force, is this the largest thing of swatting calls that you've seen, especially statewide?
Yes, I've been on for 29 years now. We didn't have this in my earlier days. This is something, just within the last couple of years, and it's a problem.
And I guess, is there any hope that working with the FBI is going to, are you guys going to be able to find some kind of way to, again, kind of deter something like this? Obviously, the people who are making these calls, setting this system in place, they know what they're doing. They know there are consequences. But is there going to be an escalation?
I would hope it would be a deterrent, when in the days, in the weeks after TOPS, we were going down rabbit holes chasing, fake calls as well. We were able to, with the assistance of the FBI made an arrest on a call out in Washington. And I believe that individual got 2 years in prison for that. Was that a deterrent? I would like to think that it would be, but clearly we're seeing that it's not. So the FBI has a much farther reach, much better technology. Hopefully they can track down the source of these calls and prosecute to the fullest extent that they can. So anybody locally, we've seen this, where students have made these calls. We will prosecute you. We will prosecute you to the fullest extent. It's not a joking matter. And yes, you are liable if a civilian is injured or killed. In our response to those scenes, you are responsible for what you did, for what you called.
All right, thank you. The commissioner's got to get to a meeting right now. Thank you, everybody.